Ravi was a simple man who lived in a small rented room with his 7-year-old son, Aman. He was a single father. His wife had passed away years ago, and since then he carried all the weight of life alone. Every day he worked at a repair shop, fixing radios, fans, and other broken machines. At night he drove a small taxi to earn a little extra. The money he made was never enough, but he still tried to keep food on the table and pay school fees for Aman. Ravi often came home tired, but when Aman smiled, all his pain seemed to fade. The boy would run to him, hug him, and tell him about his school day. Sometimes they would share a simple meal of rice and vegetables, sitting on the floor with laughter filling the room. Ravi would always tell Aman that life might be hard now, but one day things would get better if they never gave up. That morning the sky looked heavy. Dark clouds covered the sun and the air felt strange, as if something was about to happen. Ravi sat inside the repair shop trying to fix an old radio that a customer had left. Aman sat beside him drawing on a piece of paper. The town was busy outside, with shopkeepers calling customers and children running through the narrow streets. Suddenly the ground began to shake. At first Ravi thought it was a truck passing by, but the vibration grew stronger. The tools on his table rattled, shelves shook, and glass cracked. People screamed in the street. Ravi's heart jumped. He grabbed a man's hand and pulled him out of the shop just as a part of the roof fell behind them. It was an earthquake. The whole town turned into chaos. Buildings cracked, walls collapsed, and dust rose in thick clouds. Men and women ran in panic, trying to save their families. Children cried, holding on to their parents. Some houses fell completely, leaving people trapped inside. The sound of destruction filled the air, mixed with cries for help. Ravi held Aman close, his heart beating fast. He looked around, searching for a safe place. But everywhere there was confusion. As he moved through the street, he suddenly heard a faint cry. It was not a child's cry, but a voice calling out weakly, begging for help. He turned his head and saw a girl lying under fallen wooden beams from a broken house. She looked about 14 or 15. Her clothes were torn and dusty, and her hair was tangled with bits of plaster and dirt. She tried to move but could not free herself. Her eyes were wide with fear. Without wasting a second, Ravi pushed Aman behind him and rushed to the girl. He tried to lift the heavy beam, but it would not move. He clenched his teeth, used all his strength, and finally managed to shift it just enough to pull her out. His arms burned and his body shook from effort, but he did not stop until she was free. The girl coughed as dust filled her lungs. Ravi lifted her carefully and carried her to the open street. He laid her on the ground and checked if she was hurt. Thankfully, she had no broken bones, only bruises and scratches. "Are you all right?" Ravi asked, his voice gentle. The girl looked at him with teary eyes. Her voice was weak, but she whispered, "Thank you." A man stood beside his father, holding his small hand tightly. He looked at the girl with concern. "Papa, will she be okay?" he asked softly. Ravi nodded. "She will be fine, son." Then he looked at the girl again. She seemed scared but also strong. There was something unusual about her. Her eyes, even though filled with tears, carried a deep look, as if she had lived through more than most children her age. Ravi did not know who she was. To him, she was just another person who needed help in a time of disaster. But the girl he had saved was no ordinary girl. She was someone hiding a secret that would change both their lives in the days to come. For now, all Ravi knew was that he had to keep his son safe, and he could not leave the girl alone in such chaos. The earthquake had shaken the town, but it had also brought 3 lives together in a way none of them expected. The earth kept shaking in small waves, and people were afraid to go back into their homes. Many gathered in the open ground near the marketplace, carrying whatever they could save from their houses. Children cried, mothers tried to calm them, and old men prayed for safety. Ravi guided Aman and the girl he had rescued toward the open space. He laid her down on a clean cloth that one woman spread on the ground. The girl looked weak, her face pale, but she tried to sit up. Ravi gently stopped her. "You must rest," he said softly. "You are safe now." The girl's eyes met his. She looked at him as if she wanted to say more, but then turned her gaze away. Aman sat close, offering her the small bottle of water he always carried in his school bag. She took it with shaking hands, sipped slowly, and whispered, "Thank you." "What is your name?" Ravi asked. The girl hesitated for a moment before answering, "Mira." It was a simple name, but there was something heavy in the way she spoke it, as if she carried a secret behind it. Ravi did not notice much. To him, she was just a young girl who needed help. As the hours passed, rescue workers arrived in the town. They tried to clear broken houses and bring out people who were trapped. Loud sirens filled the air as trucks and ambulances rushed in. Still, not everyone was safe, and many had lost their homes. A man leaned against Ravi's shoulder and whispered, "Papa, where will we sleep tonight? Our shop is broken and the room may not be safe." Ravi stroked his son's hair. "We will manage, son. Do not worry." Mira listened silently. Her eyes showed sadness but also gratitude. She had nowhere to go either. Nobody came looking for her. Nobody called her name. For a girl of her age, it was strange to be alone. Yet she said nothing about her family. When the evening came, people lit small fires and shared food with one another. Ravi only had a little rice and bread in a cloth bag, but he divided it between a man and Mira. He himself ate very little. "Uncle, you should eat too," Mira said, noticing that he gave more to the children. Ravi smiled faintly. "I will be fine. You two need strength." That night they slept under the open sky. The ground was cold, and the air was filled with the sound of distant cries and aftershocks. Ravi could not sleep much. He kept looking at Aman and Mira, making sure they were safe. He wondered who this girl was and why she was alone in such a disaster. The next morning, rescue teams started making lists of people. They asked everyone their names and addresses. When they came to Mira, she quickly lowered her head. "I do not remember," she said quietly. The officer looked surprised. "You do not know your home or family?" Mira shook her head. Ravi noticed her hands trembling. He thought maybe she was in shock and had forgotten. He did not push her. Instead, he told the officer, "She will stay with us for now. She is just a child." The officer nodded and moved on. A man held Mira's hand and said kindly, "Do not worry. Papa will take care of you. You are like my sister now." For the first time, Mira smiled. It was a small smile, but it carried warmth. During the day, Ravi tried to help others clear the rubble. His arms ached, but he kept working. Mira stayed with Aman, keeping him company. She was quiet most of the time, watching people with careful eyes. She seemed to notice everything but spoke little. Later in the afternoon, Mira whispered to Aman, "Your father is very kind." Aman nodded proudly. "He always helps people, even when he has nothing. That is why I love him." Mira's eyes softened. She looked at Ravi from a distance. Something inside her stirred. She was not used to such simple kindness. As the sun set again, Ravi realized he had taken responsibility for a girl he knew nothing about. Still, leaving her alone was not an option. She needed safety, and his heart would not allow him to walk away. What Ravi did not know was that Mira was not just a lost girl. She was hiding from a world that would turn upside down the moment her true identity was revealed. For now, she was only a stranger under his care, but soon, her secret would test everything Ravi thought he knew about life, trust, and destiny. The earthquake had left the town broken. Cracked walls stood like wounded soldiers, and fallen roofs lay scattered across the streets. Rescue workers built temporary shelters in the schoolyard for families who had lost their homes. Ravi stood in line with Aman and Mira, waiting for their turn to get a small tent. His shop was damaged and his rented room was unsafe, so he had no choice but to join the others. When their turn came, they were given a thin cloth tent and 2 blankets. Ravi thanked the worker, then carried the bundle on his shoulder. Aman ran beside him, holding Mira's hand so she would not get lost in the crowd. They found a corner in the schoolyard and set up the tent. It was small, barely enough for 3 people, but Ravi did not complain. He spread one blanket on the ground and used the other to cover the children at night. Life in the shelter was difficult. Long lines formed for food, and the meals were simple porridge or bread. People whispered about missing loved ones and broken houses. Some cried quietly at night. The air was heavy with sadness, yet Ravi tried to keep a little light for Aman. In the evenings, he told him stories about brave men and kind heroes who never gave up. Aman listened with wide eyes and smiled even in the middle of hardship.
Mira also sat nearby, listening silently.
Though she never asked for stories, her face softened whenever Ravi spoke. One evening after dinner, Aman asked, "Papa, when will we go back home?" Ravi sighed but kept his voice calm. "Soon, son. When it is safe." Mira lowered her head. She did not speak, but her fingers twisted the edge of her shawl. Ravi noticed her sadness. He wondered again about her family, but he did not ask. He knew the pain of losing loved ones and did not want to press her. The next morning, Ravi decided to look for small repair jobs. Even in disaster, people needed help fixing radios to hear the news or lamps for light. He left Aman and Mira in the shelter, telling them to stay together. Hours later, when he returned, he found Aman laughing as Mira taught him how to fold paper birds. She had torn pages from an old notebook and turned them into little shapes. Aman's face glowed with joy as he held up the bird. "Papa, look what Mira taught me," Aman shouted happily. Ravi smiled. It was the first time he had seen Aman so cheerful since the earthquake. Mira looked shy but proud. "It is something I learned long ago," she said softly. That night, Aman fell asleep quickly, holding the paper bird in his hand. Ravi and Mira sat quietly outside the tent, watching the stars. "You are very kind to my son," Ravi said gently. "Thank you for keeping him happy." Mira looked at him with wide eyes.
He is like my little brother now.
"I do not want him to be sad." Ravi nodded. "You have a good heart, Mira. But tell me, are you sure you have no family here? Nobody has come looking for you." For a moment, her lips trembled and her eyes filled with fear. Then she shook her head quickly. "I have no one." Ravi did not push further. He could see she was hiding something, but he also saw her fear. Whatever her truth was, she was not ready to share it. He only said, "You are safe with us. That is all that matters." Mira looked down and a tear rolled down her cheek. She wiped it away before Ravi noticed, but inside her heart she knew she carried a secret too big for a man like him to imagine. The following days, Ravi continued to work on small jobs. He earned a little money and bought fruits for Aman and Mira. The children laughed more often, and their tent, though small, felt warmer than many others. People in the shelter began to notice. They whispered that Ravi must be a strong man to care for not only his son, but also a girl who was not his own. Ravi ignored the whispers. He believed in doing what was right, not what was easy. But in the distance, unknown to him, a group of strangers had arrived in the town. They were searching for someone. They carried pictures and asked questions quietly. Their eyes were sharp and their words were secret. Among the missing people's names, one name was whispered with special care. That name was Mira, and if Ravi had heard it, he would have realized that the girl in his tent was not just a stranger. She was someone powerful, someone important, someone whose truth could change his life forever. Days passed in the shelter, and life slowly found a rhythm. Ravi worked hard to find small repairs. Aman played with other children, and Mira quietly stayed close to them. She spoke little about herself, but her gentle nature made people respect her. She helped women carry water, cared for younger children, and shared her food with those who had none. Still, Ravi often wondered about her. There was something about the way she carried herself. Even in simple clothes, even with dust on her face, she looked different. Her eyes seemed to notice everything. Her hands moved with grace, and her voice, though soft, carried a tone of someone who was used to being heard. One evening, as Ravi was fixing a lantern near the edge of the camp, he noticed two men in clean suits walking slowly among the tents. They were not rescue workers, and they did not look like villagers. Their shoes were polished, their hair neat, and their eyes scanned the crowd with sharp attention. They stopped often, showing a photograph to people, asking questions. Ravi grew curious but stayed quiet. When the men reached near his tent, he quickly lowered his head and kept working. The men showed the picture to a woman nearby. The woman shook her head and they moved on. Later that night, Ravi returned to the tent. Mira was inside, sitting close to Aman, listening to him read from his schoolbook. Ravi sat down quietly, but he noticed Mira's hands trembling slightly. She looked nervous. "Are you all right, Mira?" Ravi asked. She hesitated before answering. "Yes, uncle, I am fine." But her eyes did not match her words. Ravi could see fear in them. For a while he said nothing. Then he spoke gently. "You can tell me if something is wrong. I will not let anyone harm you." Mira looked at him for a long moment. Her lips parted as if she wanted to speak, but then she lowered her head. "Thank you," she whispered, but nothing more. The next morning, the two men returned, joined by another. They spoke quietly with the officers in charge of the shelter. A little crowd formed as whispers spread. Ravi overheard a man saying, "They are looking for a rich man's daughter who went missing during the earthquake." The words struck him, but he did not react. He looked at Mira, who sat near Aman folding paper again. She seemed calm, but her eyes darted nervously at every sound. Ravi's heart began to piece together the truth. Later, when Aman went to play, Ravi sat beside Mira. "Tell me the truth, child," he said softly. "Are those men searching for you?" Her face turned pale. She looked around before answering in a shaky voice. "Please, uncle, do not let them take me. I cannot go back." Ravi was shocked. "Why? If they are your family, they must be worried." Mira shook her head fiercely. "They are not my family. They work for people who want me for their own reasons. If they find me, I will lose my freedom." Her words confused Ravi. He wanted to ask more, but he saw tears welling in her eyes. He remembered the day he pulled her from under the rubble, how scared she had been, how alone she was. He could not bring himself to force answers out of her. "You are safe with us," he said firmly. "I gave you my word, and I will keep it." Mira looked at him with gratitude so deep that her eyes glistened. For the first time, she reached out and held his hand, as if trusting him fully. That night, Ravi lay awake, listening to Aman's soft breathing and watching Mira sleep with her arms curled around the paper bird Aman had made for her. His mind was restless. He had taken responsibility for a girl who clearly carried a secret bigger than anything he had known. If those men found her, trouble could follow. Yet in his heart he knew he could not abandon her. The world outside their small tent seemed dangerous, but inside, Ravi had built a fragile circle of trust. A struggling father, a little boy, and a hidden girl were now tied together by fate. What Ravi did not realize was that the search for Mira was growing stronger each day, and soon the quiet shelter would no longer be safe. The shelter grew busier as more families arrived from nearby villages. Food lines grew longer, and the air was filled with noise and worry. Yet inside Ravi's small tent, a fragile peace still existed. Aman played with other children, while Mira quietly helped women prepare meals and fetch water. But Ravi's mind was restless. He could not forget the suited men who had shown photographs around the camp. Each time he saw them walking in the distance, his heart tightened. He knew they were looking for Mira, and he knew she was hiding something important. One afternoon, while Aman was napping, Ravi found Mira sitting alone behind the tent. Her hands were busy folding paper into shapes, but her face was serious. He sat beside her and spoke gently. "Mira, you trust me, don't you?" She looked up, her eyes wide. "Yes, uncle. You saved my life. I trust you." "Then you must tell me the truth," Ravi said softly. "If those men are dangerous, I must know. I cannot protect you without knowing what I am protecting you from." Mira's hands froze. The paper slipped from her fingers. For a long time she was silent. Then, in a trembling voice, she said, "I am not just a lost girl. My family is very wealthy. My father owns big companies and people call him a billionaire. But when the earthquake came, I was separated from my guards and my driver. I ran and I hid. I was afraid because I knew some people wanted to use me. Not everyone who works for my father is loyal. Some men only see me as a key to money and power." Ravi was stunned. The quiet, dusty girl he had rescued was not a simple villager. She was the daughter of one of the richest men in the country. He stared at her, struggling to take in her words. "Then those men in suits," Ravi whispered. Mira nodded. "They work for people who want to control me. If they find me, they will take me away before my real family can reach me. That is why I stayed quiet. I did not tell anyone. But I told you because you are kind, and Aman is like a brother to me. I feel safe here." Her eyes filled with tears, but they did not fall. She looked at Ravi with trust deeper than words. Ravi felt torn. He was only a poor repairman, a single father fighting each day for survival. Yet destiny had placed this girl in his care. Her secret was heavier than anything he had carried before. He thought of Aman and the danger that might follow if powerful people discovered that Mira was with them. But he also thought of her frightened eyes when he found her under the rubble. He could not abandon her now. "You are safe with me," Ravi said firmly. "I promise to protect you, and I will. No one will harm you while I am here." Mira's lips curved into a faint smile, the first true smile since the earthquake. "Thank you, uncle. You are the first person who cared for me without wanting anything in return." That night, while Aman slept peacefully, Ravi stayed awake again. His mind was full of worry. If the wrong people discovered Mira, they could take her far away. They might even harm her to pressure her family. He had no wealth, no power, no weapons. All he had was his determination. The next day, whispers spread in the camp. Some people said that the men in suits had offered rewards for anyone who gave information about a missing girl. A few even claimed to have seen posters with her picture. Ravi knew time was running out. He gathered Aman and Mira in the tent and spoke in a serious tone. "We cannot stay here much longer. Too many eyes are watching. We will have to leave quietly before those men discover us." Aman looked confused but trusted his father. Mira lowered her head, fear flickering in her eyes, but she nodded. She believed in Ravi, and that gave her courage. As the sun set, Ravi made his plan. He would wait until night when most people slept, then slip out of the camp with Aman and Mira. It was risky, but staying was even more dangerous. The earthquake had destroyed houses, but what lay ahead could destroy lives. Ravi did not know where the road would lead, but he knew one thing. He would protect both children with every breath in his body. And somewhere beyond the broken streets and fallen walls, people with sharp eyes were still searching. The game of shadows around Mira had only just begun. The night was quiet in the shelter. Most families had gone to sleep after a long day of standing in food lines and clearing rubble. A few small fires still burned, their light flickering in the dark. Ravi sat inside his small tent watching Aman and Mira. Both were awake, their eyes wide with worry after hearing his plan. "Papa, where will we go?" Aman asked in a whisper. Ravi placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "We will go to the old railway station. It is broken, but no one goes there. We can rest until I find a safer place." Mira's voice shook as she asked, "Uncle, are you sure we can leave without anyone noticing?" Ravi nodded firmly. "We must try. If those men are offering rewards, someone may betray us. It is better to move now." When midnight came, Ravi quietly folded the blanket and tied it around his shoulder. He held a man's hand and signaled Mira to stay close. The three of them slipped out of the camp like shadows. The guards were tired and half asleep, so nobody stopped them. The streets outside the shelter were broken and silent. Fallen poles and cracked walls lined the way, and the moonlight made the ruins look even sadder. Aman held tight to his father's hand while Mira followed close, her heart pounding. Every small sound made her flinch. They walked for more than an hour, moving carefully through the empty town. At last they reached the railway station. The building had cracks and broken windows, but it was still standing. A few old benches lay scattered and weeds grew through the floor. "This will be our place for now," Ravi said, guiding them inside. He spread the blanket on the floor and the children sat down. Aman leaned against his father, already sleepy. Mira sat quietly, hugging her knees, her eyes full of questions but also trust. Ravi stayed awake, listening to the night. His heart was heavy. He had taken a dangerous step, but he knew it was the only way to protect Mira. The next morning he went out to find food. He left Aman and Mira hidden inside the station, warning them not to make noise. Ravi walked through the ruined streets until he found a small stall where an old man sold bread and tea. Ravi spent a little of his saved money and bought enough for the three of them. When he returned, Aman's eyes lit up. "Papa, you are back." He ran to hug him. Mira also smiled faintly, relief on her face. They shared the bread and tea, eating slowly, grateful for every bite. After breakfast, Mira spoke softly. "Uncle, I know I have brought danger to you and Aman. You could have left me in the camp, but you chose to help. Why?" Ravi looked at her with steady eyes. "Because no child should face fear alone. You may be rich or poor, it does not matter. You are still just a girl who needs protection. My heart would not allow me to walk away." Mira's eyes filled with tears, but this time she did not hide them. "You are the first person to say that to me. In my world, people look at money before they look at me. But you look at me as a person. That means more than you know." Aman hugged her small shoulder and said, "You are my sister now." Papa said family is not only by blood, it is also by heart. Mira smiled through her tears. For the first time since the earthquake, she felt a sense of belonging. But peace did not last long. By evening, Ravi noticed movement outside the station. A black car had stopped on the road and two men in suits stepped out. They looked around carefully, speaking to a shopkeeper nearby. Ravi pulled the children back into the shadows, his heart racing. "They are searching even here," he whispered. "We must be more careful." The men stayed for a while, then drove away. Ravi breathed deeply, but he knew this was only the beginning. The search was spreading wider. That night, Ravi sat awake again, planning. He realized they could not stay in one place for long. If the men were following clues, soon they would reach the station. He would have to move the children again, maybe to a distant village where nobody asked questions. For now, All he could do was hold his son close, keep Mira safe, and pray that dawn would bring another day of courage. The earthquake had taken his home, but fate had given him a new duty. He was not just a father now. He was also the guardian of a hidden girl whose truth was bigger than both of them. The next morning, Ravi realized they could not stay near the town any longer. The earthquake had destroyed homes, but it had also spread rumors. People whispered about the missing girl, and anyone who had seen her could easily reveal their hiding place. Ravi needed help, but he had no one to trust outside the children. He decided to leave early before the sun rose. Aman woke first, rubbing his eyes. Mira was already awake, quietly folding the paper birds she and Aman had made. Ravi smiled at them both. "We must move," he said. "It is not safe here anymore." They packed their few belongings and slipped out of the railway station. The streets were quiet, the town still recovering from the earthquake. They moved carefully, avoiding the main roads where vehicles and people could spot them. As they walked, Ravi thought about where to go. He could not risk hiding in another town. The news about the missing girl could have already reached there. He needed someone who could guide them. Hours later, as the sun climbed higher, they reached the edge of a small forest. Ravi stopped and looked at the thick trees. "We can rest here for a while," he said. "It is safe and we can plan our next move." The children nodded. Aman sat on a rock, eating the small pieces of bread Ravi had saved. Mira leaned against a tree, quiet but alert. Suddenly, a soft voice spoke from behind the bushes. "You should not be here alone." Ravi jumped slightly. A man stepped out of the shadows. He was middle-aged, wearing simple clothes, and his eyes were calm but sharp. He held a small satchel and looked at them carefully. "Who are you?" Ravi asked cautiously, holding Aman close. "I am Arun," the man said. "I help people who are in danger. I know about the girl you are protecting. If you need help, I can guide you to a safe place." Mira's eyes widened. "You know about me?" she whispered. Aaron nodded. "Yes, I know your story. I have friends who can hide you where no one will find you. But you must trust me completely." Ravi looked at the man, trying to read his intentions. Aaron seemed sincere, and the way he spoke gave Ravi hope. He glanced at Aman, who looked up with wide eyes. Then he turned to Mira. Her face was tense, but she nodded slightly. "All right," Ravi said. "We will trust you, but you must promise to keep the children safe." Aaron smiled faintly. "I promise. Come with me." They followed Aaron through the forest. The trees grew thick, and the sunlight barely touched the ground. Birds chirped, and the air smelled fresh. For the first time in days, the children felt a little calm. Mira held Aman's hand as they walked, feeling safer with someone who seemed to know the world she feared. After an hour, they reached a small cabin hidden among the trees. It looked old but sturdy, with smoke rising from a chimney. Aaron knocked on the wooden door. A woman opened it, smiling kindly. "You are safe here," she said. "Come inside." The cabin was warm and clean. There were blankets, food, and fresh water. Aman's face lit up as he ran to the corner where small toys were stacked. Mira looked around in amazement. She had not seen a place this safe since the earthquake. Ravi sat down with a deep sigh. "I cannot believe we found this place," he said. "Thank you for helping us," Arun shook his head. "It is your courage that brought you here. You protected her when many would have turned away. That is why I am here to help." That night, as Aman slept soundly, Mira sat with Ravi. "Uncle, I feel like I can breathe here," she said softly. "For the first time, I do not feel scared." Ravi smiled. "We are safe for now. But tomorrow we will need to plan our journey to reach a place where no one can find you, until your family can come safely." Mira nodded, resting her head on his shoulder. Ravi realized that no amount of money or power could compare to the safety and trust they had built together. Outside the cabin, the forest was calm. The earthquake had shaken the town, powerful and frightening. But inside the small cabin, a struggling father, a brave girl, and a little boy had found hope. And as Ravi looked at Mira's peaceful face, he understood that courage, kindness, and trust were stronger than any fear. The journey was far from over, but for the first time they had an ally. And sometimes, allies made all the difference. The small cabin in the forest became their safe haven. For the first time since the earthquake, Ravi, Aman, and Mira could breathe without fear. Aaron and the woman in the cabin helped them with food, clean water, and warm blankets. They explained that the forest was far from the main roads and people rarely passed by. It was the perfect hiding place until they could plan the next step. Mira felt a weight lifting off her shoulders. For so long she had hidden from the world, scared of strangers and those who wanted to use her. But here with Ravi and Aman she felt protected. She helped in small ways, cooking, cleaning, and playing with Aman. She smiled more than she had in months. Ravi watched her quietly. He realized that even though she was the daughter of a billionaire, she was still a child who needed care and love. He did not think about wealth or power. He only thought about keeping her safe. One morning, Aaron returned with news. "I have contacted someone your family trusts," he said to Mira. "They are organizing a safe way to bring you back without danger, but it will take a few days." Mira's eyes filled with relief. "I thought I would never see anyone who cares about me," she whispered. Ravi patted her shoulder. "You have been brave, Mira. You survived alone and you trusted us. That courage will help you now." Aman hugged her tightly. "You are my sister," he said simply. "I am happy you are safe." The next few days were calm. Ravi and Arun taught Mira how to move quietly and stay alert. They gathered food and prepared small supplies for the journey. Aman enjoyed the adventure, though he noticed the tension in the air. Ravi reassured him that everything would be fine. Finally, the day came to leave the cabin. Arun guided them through hidden paths in the forest to a small vehicle parked on a dirt road. The driver was polite and quiet, ready to take Mira to a safe location where her family could meet her without risk. Mira turned to Ravi and Aman. Tears filled her eyes. "I will never forget you," she said. "You saved my life and you gave me hope. I will always remember your kindness." Ravi held her hands gently. "You are a brave girl, Mira. Take care of yourself. Remember that courage and honesty matter more than anything." Aman hugged her tightly. "Be happy, sister," he whispered. Mira smiled through her tears and nodded. She stepped into the vehicle, waving one last time. The vehicle drove away quietly, leaving Ravi and Aman on the dirt road. Ravi watched until it disappeared. He felt a mixture of relief and sadness. He had grown attached to the girl who had become part of their small family. But he also knew she was going to a safe place where she belonged. The journey back to the forest cabin was quiet. Ravi held Aman's hand, thinking about the past weeks. The earthquake had brought destruction, but it had also brought unexpected connections. They had learned bravery, trust, and the strength of kindness. When they returned to the cabin, Aaron smiled at them. "You both have done more than I expected. You protected her when it mattered most. That is a rare kind of courage." Ravi nodded. "We did what we had to. That is all." Weeks later, Mira's family contacted Arun. They thanked him and Ravi for keeping her safe. They promised to take care of her and ensure she would never face danger again. Mira sent a letter to Ravi and Aman. In simple words, she wrote about gratitude, friendship, and the memories of the days they shared together. Ravi placed the letter in a small box, smiling. Aman leaned against him. "Papa, she will be happy now," he said. "Yes, son," Ravi replied. "And we will always remember her courage and the joy she brought us." Life slowly returned to normal. Ravi repaired a few machines and restarted his small taxi rides. Aman went back to school. Their world was still simple, still modest, but their hearts were full. Ravi often thought about Mira. He realized that kindness, courage, and love were treasures greater than wealth. The earthquake had taken homes and shaken the earth, but it had also shown him the value of humanity. And somewhere far away, Mira was safe, smiling, and remembering the small family who had given her the greatest gift of all, a chance to live freely, without fear and with hope in her heart. The struggle had been long, the danger real, but in the end a simple man, his little son, and a hidden girl had found strength in each other. Life was uncertain, but it was also beautiful, full of courage, trust, and the promise of new beginnings.